word why. What a curious word. The kind of word that can make us cringe, feel defensive, or even distant. But you know, sometimes why is the key. The key that can unlock so much to our lives. Join me as we explore the why with fascinating contributors to the world. Those that entertain us, inform us, teach us about life, and if we're lucky, inspire the next in all of us. I'm your host, Dr. Rod Berger, and welcome to Headroom, a production of Rainlight and co-produced by Old Soul. Let's go. Well, recently, for those of you that follow my social media, and I'm sure all of you do, I say that in jest here, you might have seen that I was at Art Basel in Miami, and I will admit that I did not feel like I was, someone that knew what he was doing walking around this incredible art that was everywhere. It was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And I came back and I thought, you know what? I would really love to learn a little bit more about sort of what's going on in the art scene with some innovative people. And I thought, you know what, let's do that with somebody who graduated from the University of Michigan prior to the college football playoff here. And we're going to be speaking with Chelsea Nassib. She is the co-founder of Tappan. Many of you in the art world know about Tappan and Chelsea and what she has done. Can you give me let's start here, Chelsea. Let's start with a 10,000 foot view. Because as I was preparing for our discussion today, I will admit, again, my second time here, feeling a little bit ignorant, thinking, well, how has this not already been sort of out there, that when we think about the way in which someone like me or those that have great sort of deep knowledge in art can purchase art online? So give me the 10,000 foot view, because I know you graduated, maybe the prospects weren't terribly sort of where you wanted them, and you said, I'm going to do something about this.
Yeah. So when I graduated and I wanted to be an artist, I started selling my work, having shows, and just felt like the path to success wasn't very clear. I also felt like connecting artists and collectors, there was a real gap in the market. At the time, this is like 2010, the art world said that they would never go online. And just being young, I felt
and
like
unafraid.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's crazy. Of course it's going to go online. And so let's try with a proof of concept. So out of art school, got a bunch of friends who were full-time artists pursuing the full-time career. Let's see if we get their work online, if people will buy artwork online. And 10 years and a full pandemic, the whole art world went online, and everybody's joined us in this space. But we were happy to have, figured out the kinks along the way.
Okay, so let's talk about some basic challenges. I mean, I'm thinking about everything from, you're dealing with, I can only imagine when they initially said in 2010, like, we're not going online, right? Because I think,
right,
again, people think of art as reflecting, like, in essence, there's no middle ground. If I think about a starving artist and a painter, right, we see that in Hollywood, but then we see the people that buy the art, and we're talking about two different classes of people, at least from a sort of a storytelling perspective.
Sure.
And it seems like you're sort of combining those lives,
yes,
right,
yeah,
in some fashion that allows then for the sort of the common folk or art follower, right, enthusiast to be able to then purchase that art. Was it harder to convince the buyer or the artist?
The artist at first.
The artist.
At first. So there's so many elements to the art world that make someone who is as educated and sophisticated as yourself feel like they don't understand the art world, or feel like they're a fish out of water. And part of that is the transparency of the market, and just a general approach, right? So to answer your question, the artists were afraid of what it meant for their career to go online.
As if it would dilute their value, Chelsea?
Right. And it was uncharted territory. So, what is it going to do? How is it going to affect my market? Um, Things like that, things of that nature. And then losing my train of thought.
We were just talking about the difficulty and basically who you're selling first and or who is easier. Is it the buyer? Because from the buyer side, I would imagine you mentioned about transparency, right? So
Right.
I think about it, and I think art, I'll speak from my perspective, is terribly subjective, right? So this is, I have an 8 and 10-year-old, right? And so their school, there's a part of some app or something that they have that they'll send their artwork on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then it's
Mm-hmm.
great. It's like, would you like to put this picture of, a minion on a coffee cup? And I think to myself,
Oh,
that is amazing, right? So, but it's completely subjective as the buyer,
right.
what I like or what I don't like. And if
Right.
transparency is an issue already in art, and now we're going online, do you have to sort of stack the deck to not prove maybe that, but to get the support of the buyer out there that didn't even know it was an option?
Right. And so one of the things when we started was two things that were not common in the art world was transparency um, in price and the availability of the work. So that in and of itself was a whole different approach to selling artwork. And that was really important to us because even myself, somebody very comfortable being in an artist studio, talking and understanding, judging, whether I like a piece of artwork or not, am uncomfortable walking into a gallery where they may or may not say hi. They may or may not tell you about the artist's work. And there's a lot there that, make that barrier to entry to feel comfortable talking and learning about the artwork difficult. So one of the things that we wanted to do was, me personally, my favorite thing is to be in the artist studio. And so as a education moment, we have a ton of artist interviews. One of the entry points for me, for our customers, for our collectors, was to get them to understand what the artist is going through, thinking about, contemplating, and then processing internally and expressing through their artwork. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of artists, whether it's fine artists or musicians or dancers. They're really the ones that contemplate our existence and express it back to us in such a beautiful way. So it's really an honor for me to support them. And it's really important to me to highlight that part of it as an entry point for people because it's so human and it's such a beautiful entry point that I think most people can connect with. It's just when you see artwork in a blank space and don't feel like you can ask about the artist or why they're making and all of that background, whether you like the work or not, it becomes difficult out of context, and so that was one of the challenges that we focused on addressing in the online space.
So really sort of the person behind the brush, if we're using painting as an
Yeah.
example. Is that fair?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Tell me about the first yes from an artist when you built this. Was that, I would imagine that was a turning point.
Yeah, I mean, there were artists who were immediate yeses. There were artists who had to contemplate and go back and then come back. But I remember one of the most pivotal early moments for me was an artist who I adore the work, was going to stop making because early in their career, it's difficult to sell the work and justify pursuing a career, if you can't sell your work. So I sent a check at the end of the month. And the email I got back was, "Oh my goodness, thank you so much. I was going to stop making if it wasn't for this. Like, this is so validating." And he went on to show in the Hermes collection and major galleries in New York. And that was like one of my favorite earliest moments.
That's an amazing story. I can only imagine an artist and those of us that have known artists. I appreciate that you brought up art in many different forms, right?
Right.
Because it is really difficult to figure out how do they basically sustain themselves so that they can be creative and that we can enjoy the way in which they think and the way in which they express themselves. How do you, Chelsea, think about your role in all of this? Are you a conductor? Are you I mean, what role? Because as you were telling that story, it was almost as if you were extending almost like a virtual hand to that artist, right? And bringing them into a safe space kind of a thing. So how do you think of yourself?
Yeah. Interesting question. Never had that one before. I think people have told me I'm really a connector. And I think that bringing artists into a safe space and bringing collectors into a safe space where they can interact is really my role. So I see myself as like part curator, part promoter, for the artists. And yeah.
What role does education play so that maybe I'm putting my parent hat back on, and you talked about educating earlier. When we think about, typically the first thing that goes in schools is sadly our extracurricular or art and music experiences.
Yeah.
Can we extrapolate something from the world that you have built and that you're promoting? I like that you said that even with a smile. It's not that you're promoting like a boxing or something like that, but
right.
But there's this mix of sort of music and promoting, art of all kinds. But how can we help this get out in a way in which it gets younger people to even pay attention to art in a very different way, where they're maybe not able to go to a gallery, right? They don't live in New York City, or they're not near Art Basel once a year kind of a thing.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the things that I've liked to say over the years as part of our mission is to bring art back into the common conversation. I think that it used to be art and sciences were what people discussed, and now it's been replaced with a lot of media and all of that. But I think that most artists, if you ask them, and there's a famous quote by Picasso about it, something similar. It says, you ask a painter, when did they start? And, the answer is everybody as a child is creative. And some people stop and some people keep going. I just kept going. And I think that there's a lot of room for conversation around creativity and education. It could be problem solving or anything of the sort, but keeping that dialogue open for kids since they're already there would be my approach. We share a lot of education through like interviews on the site about the artist and their journey. And a lot of them are very self-reflective, whether somebody dealt with synesthesia, you'll see that in the work. If they were dyslexic, you'll see that in the work. If they lost parents, you'll see that in the work. If they're into environmentalism, you can read that and see that in the work. And so whatever somebody's interested in, whatever somebody's going through as a human experience, that can be expressed in a creative way. So I think today in schools at least, it's a lot of memorizing and regurgitating. But if we, had, in an ideal world, the opportunity to express ourselves and problem solve creatively, it could look very different.
Headroom is produced by Old Soul. a one-stop marketing agency that understands the power of brand and nuance. Reach out to my guy Matt at Old Soul and supercharge your brand and content strategy. That's Old Soul. Shoot Matt a note at aoldsoul.com. That's AOLDSOUL.com. And now, back to our guest.
Yeah.
The comfortability with the unknown. Help me understand or walk me through what we should be expecting with the digital art world. I keep seeing all these stories and, these, and I may not even be describing that correctly, but it's basically art that is created digitally.
Yes.
Is there going to be an impact on the way in which you operate? How should we understand it? It feels like it's leaning into this NFT space. I mean, there's just this new world out there, and I don't know how that's impacting you in the way in which you think about the physical art piece.
Yeah, I think the metaverse and Web3 is definitely something that's coming. I like to think of NFTs and the digital and the making of digital work is as a new tool, as a new medium, sort of like when photography came on the scene and painters were like, what do I do with this technology? Right? It's kind of the same way. If it's core to an artist's practice, then it makes sense. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. One of the ways that it doesn't need to be forced, in other words. One of the ways that we're using the technology on the blockchain and with NFTs that we think is really powerful, that I think is really powerful, is that we sell NFT COAs. So NFTs are non-fungible tokens and COAs are certificates of authenticity. Today in the art world, when you buy a piece, it'll come with its provenance, right? So this is when it was made, this is who made it, so they're authenticating the work. A lot of forgery and confusion down the line can come from that because it is forgeable. But if it's been on the blockchain, there's no question of whether that's the original piece. And in the smart contract of that NFT, we have put in a royalty so that every time that piece is traded, the artist will get 10% of the sale price. And so we think that's, I would imagine that's
new, right? That's innovative.
Yeah, that's very new, very innovative, and really needs the entire art market to buy into the concept for it to work.
What's been the response to that?
Very good. I mean, especially from the artists, it could be life-changing, right? Because today they sell it one time, and the record auction prices that people see, the artist doesn't get a piece of those sales. So if it were required that things traded on the blockchain and an artist got 10% of that sale every time, that would be incredible. That would be life-changing for them.
It's like selling real estate, right? I mean, the house, I mean, every time you sell it, right, the bank, I mean, they're still getting their percentage on the back end. When you look at other industries, especially in art, maybe it's because I just saw the playlist, the story about Spotify. How much do you take from those? Of course, they're not direct examples to what you're doing, but Spotify was looking at how do we create something that is open to the world? How do we support the artist? This feels like with the NFT and the COA sort of approach that it very much is. It's almost like a 2.0 version of what Spotify was doing, but in the art world. Do you look at what other industries are doing? Is that helpful for you?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole idea of a royalty comes from, music. So for us, music, entertainment, all of that doesn't really exist in the art world. But, maybe in the future or starting now.
So we were talking earlier about how you think of yourself in this space, right? I would
Mhm.
imagine you're a staunch defender of the artist, that may be the primary sort of role that you take, that you are defender in chief. That sounds probably very hyperbolic,
Yeah,
but you feel
I
that?
I think definitely the artist and the artist story is at the forefront of what we do and our mission, and but also the collector. And I think that there are people who are involved in the art world, but there is a lot of people in our country who do not participate, who don't feel like they have access. And so bringing together artists who are really making incredible work and connecting them with people who want to participate, who want to support artists, but don't feel like they can walk into a gallery, or they feel like they don't know anything about
I
artwork.
feel like you're talking to me personally, Chelsea.
I'm I mean, you're just not alone. There's just so many people who feel just like you. As soon as someone finds out what I do, they're like, oh, I don't know anything about art. Oh, I'd
You
love
become
to learn, but
intimidating, right?
yeah, yeah. It's like when you meet a dentist and you all of a sudden lick your teeth, you're just like, oh my god.
Oh, that's pretty funny.
um, I think that, yeah, and so as a defender of artists and being able to get them to a place where they can really become a full-time artist, because a lot of them start as, they have to have a day job, um, to pursue a career and to develop their collector base, and make it so that they can, have a career and flourish. That's definitely our mission, and also to bring incredible work to people who want to engage with it in a way that they haven't before. Like, if you think about it, there is a national brand of almost every industry, right? There's like a Bed Bath and Beyond or a Pottery Barn, that these are names that everybody knows, but there for mass, there is no such name in art. Obviously, there's Gagosian, there is Sotheby's and Christie's at the high end, but that's not catering to the majority of the people.
Let's pivot to your story a little bit. Tell me about being a female entrepreneur in the art world. Are you sitting at a very crowded table, or are you sitting as a party of one or a few?
I think there are a lot of powerful women in the art world, but nobody is doing something quite like we are, bringing the quality of the top to with the accessibility of the bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that we can meet people where they need to be. Yeah, I think being a female CEO it's been a learning curve, but ultimately
What surprises?
Surprises.
Yeah, what assumptions did you make early on that were either disheartening because you thought, my goodness, it's 2011, 20, whatever it is, and you're still battling something that you thought potentially was already solved?
Oh, in terms of being a female entrepreneur, I don't have any of that story. I have never been taken less seriously or afforded less opportunity because I was a woman. I don't have that. That narrative's not mine.
Potentially unique to
But
art, to the art world.
potentially unique to my perspective on things.
And what's that perspective?
Oh, we're getting really deep.
It's like we're looking at a painting. Come on, Chelsea. We're walking at Art Basel, and you.
Yeah, I just won't indulge in any like victim mentality.
No, I get it. Look, I absolutely respect that,
Yeah.
and I think it's important to share stories of very strong women, right? And it is
Yeah.
still sad when we have such a very low percentage of female entrepreneurs that get funding for those that want funding, right?
Yes.
There are
Yes.
still some things out there. Okay,
Yeah.
so
And I think just on that note, and I can definitely relate. I think that there are a lot less female founded funded companies, but I think that women, and there are studies that show this, are only go for funding once they have proven the concept to themselves. Whereas men generally will say, give me the money and I'll see if it works. And so VCs, if you're listening, obviously look for the women and fund them, because they feel a great sense of responsibility to do the right thing and to um, not take money if they don't think that they can perform. And I can very much relate to that. So it's really part of who I am as a woman, but it's not something that somebody did to me. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
totally get it. Um, let's talk about the purity of art and the
Mm-hmm.
childlike nature of when you see something for the first time. Maybe when you were a little girl and you didn't realize that you were already falling in love with art, but you were.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, that kind of visceral experience can change as we get older because we've got family and work and we're running a business, right? And so
Right.
sometimes those experiences, those moments can be fleeting. So,
Yeah.
given the space that you're in, talk
Yeah.
about how do you separate out running your company, right? Being a
Mm-hmm.
mom, doing all these sorts of things, and still finding time to have those happy artistic accidents
Right.
where you sort of make sort of that proverbial left turn and you see something that surprises you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, one of the most inspiring things and the thing that keeps me going is discovering art and artists and seeing something new for the first time. It's so incredibly awe-inspiring. And that is, it's like life is measured by the moments that take your breath away, kind of thing. And
And you still
so,
have those on a regular
oh,
basis.
yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 There is no shortage of incredible people making incredible things out there. We just have to shift our attention there. And I think that's also very root to my mission, and what drives me is to bring more beauty into our world that is so focused and making so much money off of fear and division. Um,
Has it become harder
art,
with the I mean, think about all the art pieces that you've seen in your lifetime, right?
yeah,
And it's like someone who is in the movie business. You always wonder, can they go to a movie and enjoy it for the same reasons they did that got them into the profession? Because you just know too much, or
so
you
much.
right, yeah, you might know how something was produced, or you know a little bit about the artist.
Right.
Have you gotten, I guess, better, or have you gotten to a point where you can thread that needle in a way that you can then very sort of authentically experience the art without the prejudice or the bias that I think most, you may be superhuman. I'm going to leave it the window open, Chelsea.
Lever. Thanks. Um, yes, because I think there is a critical eye that's like, okay, this is good versus this person needs to be developed. But then there's also, this is a very human experience and expression. And there's always beauty in that. There's always beauty in the vulnerability that somebody is putting into their work and then sharing publicly. And so that is probably how I would divide those is it, you know, from a critical place versus a human connection and an inspiring place.
Let's close with this. So you've crossed your first decade here.
Yeah.
What's next? It's, do you think bigger, bolder? What
Yeah.
direction does your vision take you?
Yeah. I think that we are poised to be that national brand that everybody um, feels like knows that they can go to for a truly safe and authentic art buying experience. In come January, we'll be opening our first brick and mortar space
in LA, right?
In LA, yeah, on Melrose. So please come check us out, and we'll see what that retail experience brings, and how we unfold from there.
Well, it's been a great pleasure to spend some time with you. And I said, I think at the beginning, but sort of walked into this conversation a little bit intimidated because of the very reasons we were talking about with art.
Right.
Because I love art in different forms, and I don't have a trained eye, right? So it's fascinating to spend even just a little bit of time with someone who has that trained eye, and thankfully is protecting the art world for the future. So thank you on behalf of all lay people for what you're doing, Chelsea. Where should people go to either connect with you or to learn more about your company?
My handle is Chelsea_NN_ and Tappan Collective at Tappan Collective is our Instagram handle. So that's the best place.
Well, keep up the wonderful work, and I hope to visit you at the Melrose store in
Thank
LA.
you, Rod.
I don't know if it'd be cool enough. Melrose, you got to be cool to be on.
No. If we take nothing away from this conversation, Rod, it's for everybody. It's for everybody.
And check out the website. I found thought I had a certain amount of time to go through the website, and I kept going and looking and looking.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah, we try to do the curating for you, so you feel like when you come to the site, it's a safe space. And
yeah, it did not feel intimidating. It felt actually incredibly welcoming. So continued success in all that you're doing. We want to root on the Chelsea Nassibs of the world. Go to Tappan Collective. I'm your host, Dr. Rod Berger. Thanks for taking the plunge into Headroom, where we uncover the why behind the what and who impacting our lives. Headroom is a production of Rainlight and co-produced by our friends at Old Soul. I'm your host, Dr. Rod Berger, and this is Headroom.